Greetings and welcome to Hot Topics from the Soul. I'm your host, Dr. Valerie Parker Hagan, and I have my co host.
And good evening, Dr. J.R. Thicklin here with you, and so glad to be here on this 21st day of January. And so much is happening, so much is in the air. And listen, we're now into the third, almost getting ready to enter the fourth week, I should say, of this new year. And one of the main things I'm asking, are you still holding? Are you still holding on? And are you avoiding distractions? Those are the two pertinent questions.
Wow, January 15th would have been Dr. King's 96th birthday. Can you
Wow.
imagine 96? He was assassinated in 1968. He was 39 years old. And his birthday is actually on the 15th of January. And he would have been 96 years old. And look at the irony of Trump being installed into the White House, and then here it is the second day. So much has happened. I guess people are saying, wow, we didn't expect this, and they were surprised by some of the pardons that he did for those convicted at the riot of the Capitol, and his immediate signage for the borders to be closed. And also, the surprise was those individuals that were born here and their parents weren't. It's an aha moment right there,
Well,
because a lot of them voted yes, send close the border, not realizing the repercussions that would follow.
Well, sometimes people deliberately turn a deaf ear to what is staring them right in the face. So they don't want to face it. But here's the one thing that people are going to come to the conclusion: he didn't lie. He told you exactly what he's going to do. And for people to think that he's going to do anything differently, you know, uh, I don't know what they were smoking, because he hammered on those points, because those that support that type of thinking, that's who was pushing it. And when you think about what it does to families, what it does to the nation, what it just undermines so many things. And I hate to say it before he even gets in office. You think about pardon over 1,000 of the individuals who were rioters at the January 6th, at the January 6th, 2021, uh, you know,
Insurrection, and
correction.
then for him to call them hostages, that they're in prison as hostages, which is not the case.
No, generally when people commit crimes, especially crimes of that nature, they are incarcerated, and therefore they are considered criminals. They are behind bars. They're not being held hostage. Somebody's holding them out for ransom. None of those things there. Reality is to be able to say that, and considering the people whose lives were impacted, those officers who died, those family members who could never get those individuals back, individuals who have suffered trauma behind just not only the incident itself, but just emotional trauma behind it. How do you say to them that, well, these people were just, these people was wrongfully done? Not at all. And I don't know. At the end of the day, like I tell people, I'm not trying to bash the president or nothing like that, but I will say this: we're struggling in trying to defend certain things. We're struggling. We're struggling and really trying to define is justice for all. We're struggling with whether or not this is a moving scale, a sliding scale type of a operation, because the fact, if you can pardon over 1,000 individuals who took part in nothing short of an insurrection of our country, literally talk about an overthrowing trying to overthrow the power, trying to overthrow the will of the people. If you can pardon those people there, then I wonder why can't Ray, who's sitting in jail and prison for selling marijuana, why aren't they pardoned? I just wonder how people can be pardoned. I wonder how people can run for the highest office in the land. They're convicted felons. And I got young folks and people that have served time in prison and can't even get a job because they have
And
to.
they can't vote.
They can't vote. So there's something about it's justice for all. And I just wonder, because I recall very young when I was in college, I wrote a paper. That's what it was entitled: It's justice for all. And way back then, man, we were citing different things happening in Chicago, Cook County, the Tawana Brawley case. We was going through all these different cases
Mm-hmm.
where it was blatant that justice wasn't for all. And here we are in 2025, and we're seeing still shades of those type things. How is it? How do we explain it to? How do we get a younger generation to believe in this great democracy? How do we get them to believe in this great thing that we call truth if it's not equal for all?
Mm. Yeah, there is a lot on the table and a lot to consider. And, all of this that's going on, Dr. J, is a huge distraction for those that are trying to fulfill their dreams and their purpose this 2025. We closed the door in 2024. I don't know about you, but we had a lot of losses and it was rough. And here we are in 2025 with this slapping us in the face basically. And we have to pick up the pieces and figure out what direction are we going to take and how are we going to stay focused on that which we have purposed.
That is really the challenge. And the challenge is, I think you just said it, is to stay focused. Now, here's the problem is stay focused on what? Because here's the thing about it. At the end of the day, we see now that our constitutional is a sliding scale.
Mm-hmm.
It is beginning to slide toward whoever's in power. It slides. At one time, we thought the Constitution was infallible. We thought it was that document, that really protected us for the people, other people, and by the people, all those things. Now it tends to take on personalities of parties. It now tends to bend toward one ideology versus another ideology. And as a result of that, people can feel unease. We're seeing things happen right now, rights being really literally taken from people. We're seeing things happening that literally threaten anything that we knew as normalcy. And so when people lose hope, when people see things taken away from them, it is easy for people to panic. It's easy for people to be fearful. I'm dealing with people that I'm seeing almost on a daily basis that literally are trying to find ways to move out of this country. I have a colleague who's talking about moving to Ghana. Said, I got to get out of here because they're afraid of all the things that are going to happen here. And you've got to ask yourself the question. One of the things that cause people to trust is truth.
Right.
One thing about trust has to be undergirded in truth. Only reason that we trust is because there's an element of truth. We used to say in God we trust, and we should still be saying that. But what we're dealing with is that I can trust God, but I cannot necessarily trust the government. I can't necessarily trust these institutions. And so as a result of it, people are getting distracted. People are panicking. People are becoming discouraged. People are running because they don't know what's going to happen, because what was once law is no longer law. What was once understood is no longer being understood. And so it creates this sense of anxiety, this sense of uneasiness.
Well, Dr. J, one of the things you said in the beginning is that the president told you what he was going to do.
Right.
Now, the thing is, some of us wanted things done, but didn't want them done in certain ways. Thought everybody that voted for him thought that he was going to deliver on maybe one thing they wanted, one little thing, just make a tweak, and everybody wanted to, be financially stable. But what does that look like for the lower and the middle class? What does that look like? And, the housing market is out of control, price gouging. We had the fires in California. People lost their lives and lost their livelihood. Some of them will never be able to rebuild, never be able to get back all the possessions that they've lost, and they're going to need help. What does that look like now that you're not up here? You're down here with the rest of us. How are you going to recoup, and who's going to help fund you now that you've lost everything? So the rules of engagement have changed on so many different levels.
It has changed and people are panicking. And I want people to understand this. When I talk about, there are those of us that have a strong faith that believe that we're going to be all right. It doesn't mean that we won't go through something, but we're going to be all right. Now, what teaches us
The
that
Word of God talks about what we go through as a light affliction being
exactly,
for a moment,
but
but
for
sometimes moments can go over a span of time. It can
exactly,
be a minute to years.
yeah,
So, but it is a light affliction that will last for a moment, and we will have sparks of rejoicing. And remember, Dr. J, we talked about this last week. I said, things will be looking fine, and everybody's going to be rejoicing, saying, whoa, yay, this and that for this year here. There's going to be a little bit of stability, but then the ball is going to drop.
yes,
The
indeed
ball
it
is
is.
going to drop. The word of God is going to stand of all the books of books. This is the book of books that will stand forever.
Exactly. And that's what we're talking about. When people talk about staying focused, you've got to hold on to truth. And with truth being so, if you would, so flexible now, truth being such moving, you have to hold on to what is really truth and the promises that are in that book. Because the fact, one of my favorite passages said the flower will wither, the grass would wither, the flowers would fade, but the word of our God will last forever. And then we understand at the end of the day that truth will outlast a lie. Truth will outlast a conspiracy. Truth will always come up. And no matter how we dress up a lie, listen, the naked truth will always prevail. And that's what we are dealing with in this day and time. So perhaps in the midst of our challenges, maybe it will cause us to seek truth, because
Hmm.
we become very much seeking personality, seeking parties, seeking ideologies and those things there. But we're living in a day and time when you think about families and you think about it, most of us either know people or friends or individuals who have come into this country, and their families come here, they've established themselves, and maybe when, they wasn't the first generation, maybe they married someone, or maybe, when they came here and, now that their children are here, was born here, and now we're being challenged on that. So what,
Mhm.
your child was born here? You know, how do you do that in the country that literally was built upon immigration, nations and people coming in it, and all of a sudden we are at a different place,
Mm.
different time.
But Dr. J, I hadn't been looking at the news or following politics or anything, but I turned it on because people were sending me texts and said, "Did you know about this? Did you hear about that?" So I turned on the news to hear for myself. And one of the things that they talked about was, if your parents are illegal, but yet you were born here, it challenges you for being able to stay.
Wow.
And so if you're a child, 10, 11, 12, and you are a U.S. citizen and your parents are not, your parents will have to go, and that means you have to go with them. And not only that, Dr. J, people will say, close the Mexican border, get the Mexicans out of here, get the Spanish, get them out of here. But guess what? That doesn't limit to just Mexico. That means everybody that is here illegally from whatever country, you are subject to be deported.
What's interesting, Dr. Val, is this: that what do we always hear about? Closing the southern border, the southern border. Why the southern border? I'll tell you why the southern border. Southern border is where you're going to get the majority of your Hispanics. You're going to get the majority of your Haitians. You're going to get the majority of your black and brown people. No one is talking about close the other borders there where people are coming in from Europe and coming in from other places like that. There's not a cry to close those borders. I think still there's an utmost fear amongst many of the black and browning of America. America's been black and browning for a while, and that is the fear. The fear is the fact that, and when I say this, please understand, this is not an indictment against white people at all, because I'll tell you that there's not a bone in my body that's against that. If you know anything about my history, we are the Rainbow Coalition and everything. It's either you show up at our reunion, you may see a zebra, folks of all colors, and a rainbow and a unicorn. And so it's not about that, but it's about the fact of a collective conscience that we see the black and browning of America, and no longer is white males seen as the dominant majority, and that is frightening them. It is frightening them to think that, we heard it. We heard it said even years ago with the whole, South Carolina thing when people was marching, saying Jews will not replace us. These type of antics and those things like that. No one is trying to replace anyone. Folks are being fruitful and they're multiplying. But the problem is when you're trying to hold on to old ideologies, when you hold on to old hatred and racism, when you're holding on to all these destructive things such as that, then what you're doing is you're trying to perpetuate yesterday. And we're not living in yesterday. It's time to move forward. It's time to understand and recognize that people are here because of the fact they want to be here, and people here that possess talents and abilities and all those things there. And they shouldn't be denied simply because of the pigmentation in their skin.
Absolutely. And Dr. J, we're talking, and we know that people follow us and listen to us. So if you have a question or you have a comment that you want us to communicate it with you and talk about, put it in the comment section and we will discuss it. Or Dr. J, you have the link where if anyone wants to join into the conversation and actually talk and have a question to ask so that we may discuss it, you can do that too. So if you would put that in there. So if anyone wants a question or comment regarding what we're talking about. But as I said, this is all distractions, and we must stay focused on the target at hand. And that is our goal, our end goal. What is it that you are trying to accomplish for you and your family this year? What are those financial goals? What are those spiritual goals? Because, we have to get our heart right so that our mind can be right in order to be able to move forward. Our wealth is based on our ability to think. So we have to think of the next move constantly. Every day, as an entrepreneur for over 35 years, every day I have to think of my next move because of the fact that, there's plenty of wealth. It's never a shortage of ideas, but it's getting them implemented to get to that next level. So there are people that have books in them that need to be written. There are individuals that have businesses where they can supply for the demand. There's people waiting on your services that you can provide. So this is your boot camp, your training ground to be able to study and figure out what it is that you want to do and that you are already doing it probably for free, and find out a way to monetize it.
And you're exactly right. And that's what we have to be about. And this year here, I continue to say we have to remain focused, we have to remain fervent, and we have to remain faithful to those things that we're looking at. And I think one of the things that people have to do, I continuously say that you don't enter a new year simply because the calendar changes. You don't enter a new day because the calendar changes. Accompanied by that is a mindset. It's a decision.
Yes.
You have to make up your mind that this is a decision. I am being decisive about where I'm going. And here's the thing about it. Even if you set out to do something and you have a slippage or you miss a day doing this or you miss a moment, that ain't the time to just throw away the whole blueprint and throw away the whole proclamation. No, it is a time to start it right back over, get back in line, be intentional, go after what's there. I do believe that this is a time now that if you can believe in what you have been given to do, if you can believe that you've been, in our words, anointed to do what you're doing, stick with it, trust, be led. The time now is not about waiting on somebody else to tell you it's okay. The time now is not waiting on somebody else to anoint you with some type of scepter. It's okay, now you do it. No, you've been given the scepter. Listen, you was given the abilities, you was given the skills, you was given the mindset, you was given the vision. It's time to move forth inside of that. Come on, don't allow things of your past to hold you hostage. Because once again, Dr. Val, we talked about this on just yesterday. When we talk about legacy is not talking about the past. Legacy is actually talking about the future. The
Absolutely.
legacy is about the future. It's not about the past. It's about the future. And the reality is that even when we talked about Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., and by the way, I would love to hear some of you put in the comments, what did you do for Dr. Martin Luther King Day? Was there anything that you did in remembrance of Dr. Martin Luther King Day on yesterday? And then the other part, we like to propose this question to you inside of this. How much of the dream do you think have been fulfilled in your life? How much of the dream? Have the dream been fulfilled? In a day and time where we're seeing things like affirmative action being rolled back and those type of things, in a day and time where they've made the word diversity, equity, and inclusion, they've made it a cursed phrase inside of that. How much are you seeing? Diversity, equity, and inclusion. They've made it a curse word. Hold up, folks. I am very cognizant of the fact that there are those that feel that you don't need these things, but I promise you that you do. Because for everyone who's running around saying you got to pull yourself up by your own bootstrap, listen, they start off with a pair of boots. You start off with flip flops. You wasn't given boots. And so we're behind as it is. So everything that you get, that you work hard toward, you've got to fight for it. And therefore, you cannot so be easily moved by people's opinion. Yes, there are going to be stumbling blocks. There are going to be obstacles thrown at you. These things are going to come at you, but I implore you to continue to look forward, to keep your eyes focused. In other words, you heard me say stay focused, stay fervent, and stay faithful. The word focus really comes from a word that means fireplace. Fireplace. Stay fired up. See, when you're fired up and you focus, you can move some things. Stay fired up, because when you're not fired up, that's where distraction walks in. When you're not fired up, that's when you get separated from your vision. When you're not fired up, that's when you're easily moved by other things. So the real charge today is to stay fired up. Go forth inside of it. Listen, if you want to continue the legacy, that means that you got to be a multiplier going forward. It ain't time to rest on the laurels. No. So for every young person I've had the opportunity to talk with, so many of them, I'm disappointed that they don't really know about Dr. King. They really don't know.
It is astonishing, Dr. J, that a lot of people have no idea who he was. They just know we have a holiday. I see Rose said that she's a clinical mental health professional,
Yes.
and she didn't charge her clients yesterday. And, I applaud you for that, Rose. Thank you so
That's
much
your
for
heart,
that.
Rose.
And
It's so good.
for serving
You there.
and wanting to help our community, because that is so needed, that there's so many people dealing with mental health issues. I was talking to my granddaughter, and she would say every time she gets stressed out, she is like, Dana, I'm dealing with mental health issues. I'm feeling like I'm just losing my mind. I'm dealing with mental health issues. And she said she went and checked herself in to a mental health institution because she felt she was having a breakdown. And then she said after she was in there for a day, she signed herself out because she saw people in there that really had mental health issues and realized that wasn't her. So there's people that are dealing with issues, crises in their lives that is not necessarily where they're going crazy. It's just that they don't understand that they're going through a process and don't know how to work their way through it, because they're so focused on the internet and what's online and the digital stuff. They're the reality of the world. They have no idea. They don't have a clue, because they've locked themselves in a box, so that when it comes time to do real life, they don't know how to face it. They don't know how to move on and press through it, because there is no life experience. There is no life skills.
And you're exactly right. So inside of those things, so one of the things that you just described, that a lot of time people think when we talk about, mental health problem, that doesn't mean that it's got to be things like psychosis. It doesn't have to mean those things that you're necessarily going through any type of, if you would, bipolar, things like that. The fact that you can deal with mental health issues simply being overwhelmed, simply feeling like
Absolutely.
feeling like
Overwhelmed with life.
like the room is closing in on you, feeling like you're being bombarded. And so knowing the right things to do during those times is so very important. Like, it's interesting because we see art imitate life. One of the famous phrases that came from one of the Bad Boys series, and we remember Martin Lawrence talking about USA, USA. Now, we always say people need a USA moment. You need a moment to unwind. You need a moment to be able to, if you would divest yourself of things. So I say to people all the time, I don't care who you are. Even Jesus, listen, after he got through ministering, the Bible said that, guess what? Sometimes he did what? And he moved onto the mountain, or he moved on away from it. He pulled away from the shore.
Step back.
Even he stepped back because he understood the importance of what? Refreshing. And sometimes I like to call refreshing and resetting. Sometimes we have to reset.
We have to reset. That's very important word, Dr. J.
Yes, we have to protect our mental faculties. We have to protect ourselves. Listen, none of us are supermen or superwomen. I shall keep them in perfect peace, those whose minds that are stayed on me. But what happens when the things that I'm engaged with that are pulling my mind off of him? There comes a time I have to withdraw in order to do so. I have to withdraw to make sure that I also discern what company that I'm keeping. After that, and that's why coming into a new year is more than about just arriving at a different place on the calendar. It's about being decisive. It's about being discerning. It's about really taking an introspection, because some of us need to decide who we really bringing over into 2025 with us. What things are we allowing to come over with us? There are certain things that you need to very, very classically just bow to and understand, guess what? Your time with me has expired. Or that role that you had with me has expired. Nothing against you, but I know that I have to move on. Some people, you have to understand that they've been negative. You can't always be around people that's sponsoring negative things and things that are not good for you. Even Psalms 1 said, blessed is the man that walketh not in the counsel of the ungodly. Okay, that individual who always continues to try to tell you the wrong thing to do, the unethical thing to do, the things that you should do. Don't walk in the counsel of the ungodly, nor standeth in the way of the sinner, nor sit in the seat of the scornful. But your delight should be in the Lord, and in his law does you what? Meditate.
Meditate.
Day and night. See, sometimes you need to just take time to just step away and just meditate. Refresh, refurbish. When we read that scripture, as a deer panteth by the water, so does my heart panteth after thee. Do you know why the deer is panting by the water? Because he's ran. He's ran. He's been running from the lions, and he's been running and from the things in life. And now he's at a place where I just got to be refreshed. The old folks used to sing a song, say, my soul is tired and my body need resting.
My body need resting.
My body's tired and my soul
amen to that.
And so sometimes we need to be refreshed. And that refreshing looks a lot of ways. And I want to give people permission to understand that, listen, it's all right to get refreshed. Don't listen to crazy people that tell you, well, you don't need to take no time and take no vacation, baby. If you can take a vacation, take one. If you can take time just to get away, if it's nothing but for a weekend, do so. If that's going to refresh in your heart and your mind, whatever you need to do, refresh yourself.
Right. There's nothing wrong with refreshing yourself. And, people, especially in the Christendom, it was like taboo to go out to a movie, or taboo to go out on a cruise or take a vacation, that all your money should be given to the church and supporting the church. But, if you are not replenished and you're not refreshed, if you're not focused, then you can't generate money to give and do for nobody. So it is important for you to take time for your family, invest in your family, surround yourself with your family, because life is short and unpredictable. And, when I talked about the kids at home not knowing how to do things. Do you know, Dr. J, some kids don't even know how to handwrite a letter. They don't know about going to getting a stamp and putting it in the mail. They don't know about writing a check. They don't know about any of these things, because it's simple life skills that we take for granted that they should know. Some kids don't even know how to write in script. We call it cursive and strip anymore, because of the fact that what they're being taught in the schools is all done on computer. So they don't even be writing. My 2 and 3-year-old grandsons know how to write the ABCs forward and backwards and say it. A lot of these kids that are grown don't know that getting ready to graduate, have no idea how to do any of this, no real life skills. If the computers went down, if the phones went down, they would not know how to function or operate in life. They would have a mental breakdown because they are not connected with resources to help them get to the next level. So this can be the greatest season of your life. Don't get distracted by what is going on around you, but stay focused on the task at hand. What was it that you wrote down for this new year that you wanted to fulfill and follow through? Stay focused on that. Do not get distracted. If you put benchmarks of what you want to accomplish each month, focus on that. Don't get distracted by what's going on in the news and this and that, because this can be the greatest season of your life, regardless of the situations and the circumstances. Do you know my grandmother and they had farms and they plowed and tilled that ground and they always had money? Why is it that we have 9 to 5 jobs and making almost 10 times what they made back in the day? They always had money and we don't. We got to learn how to process and save and manage our money and do investments and stay focused.
Absolutely. And Dr. Val, on that note there, when you talk about the remaining focus, the fact of the matter is really having a clear, decisive feeling in front. Have a decisive path that you're going to take. And understand this, and I'm saying this particularly for those who may feel like, well, I've already fallen off my regimen in this new year. Get back up. Simple as that. You don't throw away the whole year because of the fact you missed one routine. You don't throw away the whole plan. Not at all. Get back and do it. The fact that you recognize that you missed it, that is a good sign. Get back up, get to it, and understand you will not get to the results until you learn to fall in love with the process. Once to fall in love with the process, the results will come naturally. And that's what we have to do. Fall in love with the process. Fall in love with it. Yes, some of us are going to be going through our seasons of preparation. But remember, to everything, there's a time and season to everything up under the sun. Just as sure as there's a preparation season, there is also going to be a due season. And when the due season comes, how many know that's the season that you're going to harvest and you're going to succeed, you're going to blossom? But you got to be willing to go through in this preparatory season, whatever it is. Maybe it's a setback, maybe it's bad news, maybe you didn't get accepted for this, maybe they rejected your application, maybe all those things happen. But I promise you, listen, after you suffer a little while, you understand that God of all grace will walk with you. He will work with you. Listen, don't get distracted. Let's walk and thrive in 2025.
Ooh, I love that, Dr. J. Let's thrive in 2025. Stay focused. Next month is coming up, another week or so. We'll be in February, and it's Valentine's month. And, we'll have some good shows coming up for next month. We'll be talking about relationships. So if this show has been a blessing, forward it. And also, don't forget to subscribe to the YouTube channel, Hot Topics from the Soul. Until next time. Good night.
Good night.
Hot topics from the soul, reaching all minds, turning knowledge into gold. Yeah, hot topics from the soul. Yeah, hot topics from